"Do you see her, Claire?" Ryan angled his iPhone so the camera caught every inch of the woman beside him. Candlelight turned Emily's cheekbones into polished marble. The background hum of Cipriani Wall Street buzzed through the speaker. "This is what glows up look like," he laughed. "You always said you weren't photogenic. Can't win them all." Claire stood alone in her studio apartment, the smell of reheated takeout mixing with turpentine. On the coffee table, her sketch of a wilted magnolia lay half-finished. "You look happy," she managed. What she didn't say was, "You look like a stranger." Claire Bennett stared at the black screen long after the FaceTime call dropped, her reflection hovering faintly over the last frozen frame of Emily's perfect profile. Her own face looked grainy and tired in the glass, dark hair pulled into a messy knot, old NYU sweatshirt flecked with paint. The cheap overhead bulb hummed, washing the room in flat yellow. On the coffee table, her leather-bound sketchbook lay open. The magnolia she'd started earlier that evening drooped across the page, petals curling inward, edges shadowed with charcoal. It was supposed to be a study in texture. It looked at the moment like a portrait of her own heart. Her phone buzzed again. A photo popped up in the thread. Emily laughing, head thrown back, the crystal of her champagne glass catching points of light. Ryan's text followed. "Wild, right? Sometimes I can't believe I get to wake up next to this now. Anyway, hope you're doing okay." A ... wavered as if he might add more, then disappeared. Claire's chest tightened. The smell of their old apartment came back to her. Burnt coffee, Ryan's cologne, the synthetic lemon of the cleaning spray she'd used obsessively when the anxiety got too loud. She could hear him too, that same flippant tone. "You're pretty, babe. Just girl next door pretty. Emily has presence. It's different." He'd said that once when they were still married, drunk on vodka tonics after an office holiday party. He'd laughed and kissed her forehead like it was a compliment. She'd laughed too, then spent an hour in the bathroom picking apart her reflection under brutal vanity lights. Now his words came with 4K resolution evidence. The door to her studio rattled and then swung open with no warning. "Tell me you just blocked him," Sarah said, stepping inside in a gust of February wind and street grit. Her cheeks were flushed, dark curls escaping her beanie. The scent of cold air and street pretzels followed her. Claire blinked. "You have a key, remember?" That wasn't an answer. Sarah kicked off her boots and glanced at Claire's phone. One look at Emily's photo and her lips flattened. "Oh, for he really sent that?" Claire shrugged, trying to make it look like nothing. "He wanted to show me his fiancée. She's beautiful. Good for him." The lie tasted metallic. Sarah dropped onto the couch, grabbing the phone. "Claire, this is not good for him. This is psychological warfare by selfies. He's desperate to prove he didn't trade down." She flicked through the older messages, her eyebrows climbing. "Jesus, the look at what I get now energy is off the charts." "It's fine," Claire said. "I knew he'd move on fast." "What you didn't know," Sarah shot back, "was that he'd turn your divorce into a marketing campaign." Claire almost smiled. That was the thing about Sarah. She could lace fury with humor so it didn't crush you. On the table, her sketchbook caught Sarah's eye. She flipped it around. "The magnolia," she said softly. "That again." Claire's fingers brushed the page. "It's stubborn," she admitted. "It keeps coming out wilted." "What's the subtext?" Sarah asked. "And don't say there isn't one. You're incapable of drawing without subtext." Claire thought of the magnolia tree in her childhood backyard in New Jersey, the one her mother loved. The blossoms had always bloomed early and fallen early, scattering pale petals across the grass like confetti at the wrong party. "I guess," she said slowly, "it's about something that was supposed to be beautiful but couldn't survive the environment it was planted in." Sarah exhaled. "So, your marriage. Cool, cool, cool." Claire snorted in spite of herself. The sound surprised her. It had been a while since laughter didn't feel like betrayal of her own pain. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a different icon, an email notification. Subject, Programming Inquiry, Laurent Atelier. The name jolted her. Laurent Atelier was the kind of brand that lived on red carpets and Vogue editorials, not in her cluttered inbox. Her thumb hovered, suddenly clammy. "You okay?" Sarah asked. Claire opened the email. It was short, almost suspiciously so. "Dear Ms. Bennett, my name is Olivia Morales, and I work with Laurent Atelier in New York. We came across some of your illustration work through a mutual contact at the Brooklyn Art House show in January. Mr. Laurent is seeking to meet with emerging artists for a new textiles collaboration. If you're open to a conversation, we'd love to schedule a visit to our Soho studio." Warmly, Olivia Sarah's eyes darted across the screen with her. "Wait, Adrien Laurent, like the one who closed MoMA for that retrospective last year?" "That's probably his assistant," Claire said faintly. "Yes, obviously," Sarah snapped, "but he saw your work." She grabbed Claire's forearm. Her grip was solid, grounding. "Do you understand what this is?" Claire swallowed. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. What she didn't say was the truth. "No, I don't. Not yet. But for the first time in months, my future feels less like a blank wall and more like a door." "Email her back," Sarah said. "Right now." Claire looked once more at Emily's shining face on the text thread, then at the wilted magnolia on the page. With a small decisive motion, she clicked out of the messages. Then she started typing. Outside, a siren wailed its way up 6th Avenue, the city's endless heartbeat. Inside, Claire hit send, and somewhere in Soho, in a world she'd only ever seen in glossy spreads and Netflix documentaries, an equally small motion would soon set everything else into motion. She didn't know it yet. But the man who thought his fiancée's beauty was his greatest flex had just become the least interesting part of her story. The next time Ryan used Emily's face as a weapon, he'd be aiming it at a woman wearing a ring he couldn't afford and a last name that opened doors he couldn't enter. Snow had turned to grey slush by the time Claire stepped out of the subway at Prince Street 3 days later. Salt-streaked puddles mirrored the steel sky, and the smell of roasted nuts and exhaust mingled in the air. She pulled her scarf tighter, the wool scratching softly against her neck, and checked the address Olivia had sent. A cast-iron building on a quiet side street, its facade painted a deep, improbable black. No sign, no logo, just a small brass plate by the door. Laurent Claire wiped her boots on the mat and pressed the buzzer. Moments later, a warm voice crackled through the speaker. "Hi, this is Olivia. You must be Claire. Come on up. 4th floor." The elevator was old, the kind that rumbled and shuddered like it was remembering better days, but the doors opened onto another world. The 4th floor was all light and air, floor-to-ceiling windows, polished concrete floors, and a long row of white tables scattered with fabric swatches and sketchbooks. The faint, clean scent of starch and something floral, maybe jasmine, hung in the air. "Claire?" A woman in her 30s with sharp bangs and a sharper blazer stepped forward, extending a hand. "I'm Olivia. It's so good to finally meet you in person." "Hi," Claire said, shaking her hand. Her palm was damp. "Thank you for inviting me." "We should be thanking you. Your Magnolia series nearly started a fistfight in our office," Olivia said wryly. "In a good way. Some of our junior designers wanted to borrow the style. I told them we should maybe call the actual artist instead." Claire blinked. The idea that anyone at Laurent Atelier had even seen her work, let alone argued over it, felt faintly absurd. She thought of the small group show at the Brooklyn Art House, a handful of her friends, a few strangers, cheap wine in plastic cups. "So, Mr. Laurent," she began. "Adrien," a low voice said behind her. "Please." She turned. He was not what she'd pictured. She'd expected something slick, maybe, one of those fashion documentary caricatures, all angles and theatrics. Instead, the man walking toward her wore a navy sweater, dark jeans, and simple white sneakers. His hair, shot through with grey at the temples, curled slightly above his collar. His face was handsome in a way that had nothing to do with symmetry. Strong nose, deep-set hazel eyes, lines around his mouth that suggested he smiled often and thought even more. For a ridiculous second, Claire's brain supplied, "He looks like someone who knows where to find the best coffee in every city in Europe." "Miss Bennet," he said, holding out his hand. His accent, French, softly rounded, wrapped around the syllables of her name. "Thank you for coming." His palm was warm, his grip firm without being crushing. She was suddenly very aware that there was charcoal under her fingernails. "Thank you for inviting me," she managed. "I honestly thought the email was a scam at first." He laughed, and the tension in her shoulders loosened a fraction. "I assure you, we are very real, which I am told is sometimes a disadvantage in this industry." Olivia excused herself, and they were left alone in the airy studio. The hum of distant sewing machines filtered in from another room, rhythmic and soothing. Adrian gestured to a large table near the windows. "May I see your work?" Claire hesitated. Her leather sketchbook suddenly felt heavier than usual in her bag. The magnolia on the first page, the wilted one, seemed childish in her mind, like something torn out of a diary and mistaken for art. Still, she pulled it out and placed it on the table. He didn't sit. He stood, leaning over the pages as he turned them slowly, his fingers careful on the paper. He didn't skim, he studied. Each page got the same focused attention, as if he were reading a letter written in a language only he and the paper understood. The silence stretched, not awkward, but intense. Claire became hyper-aware of everything. The scratch of his thumbnail on the paper, the way the afternoon light traced his profile, the faint scent of his cologne, something woody with a hint of citrus. He stopped on the magnolia. The petals drooped across the page, their edges darkened. She'd drawn faint veins through them, as if life were still moving, slowly, beneath the surface. "This one," he said quietly. "You drew this from memory." "Yes," she said. "There was a tree in my yard growing up. It always bloomed too early and got hit by the last frost." "And yet," Adrian said, tracing the air above the drawing, "you did not draw it dying. You drew it waiting. There is strain here, but not surrender. Do you see?" She hadn't. Not until he said it. Her throat tightened. "I thought it just looked sad." "It looks honest," he said. He flipped the book closed gently, palms resting on the cover for a beat. "I'm tired of pretty lies. The market is drowning in them. I'm interested in something else." He motioned for her to sit. She did, more because her knees were suddenly unsteady than anything else. "I am preparing a new collection," he said. "We will show at the Museum of Modern Art in the fall. Laurent has done many things. We have not yet done this. The entire textile story built around one artist's hand. One point of view. I would like that point of view to be yours." The words seemed to hang in the air, glittering, impossible. Claire's first thought was not yes, it was Ryan would die. She pushed that aside, almost ashamed of it. "I've never designed textiles before," she said honestly. "I do illustration, book covers, occasional magazine spreads, and corporate training decks when rent is due." His mouth quirked. "Experience is overrated. It can teach you to repeat what works, instead of discovering what could be better." He leaned forward slightly. "I have technicians who understand fabric, printing, color fastness. What I need is someone who can see the world, then show it to us differently." He tapped the closed sketchbook with one finger. "You see like that." A wave of heat washed through her. Embarrassment, excitement, fear. She thought of every time Ryan had glanced at her art and said, "Cute, before turning back to his Bloomberg terminal. Every time he joked that her little drawings could one day pay for half a latte. "Why me?" she asked, and what she really meant was, "Why now? Why when I am at my lowest?" Adrian considered her. "Because when the magnolia is cut, most people draw the flower," he said. "You drew the wound." The subtext landed between them. "I see the part of you someone else tried to ignore." He slid a slim folder across the table. Inside were mock-ups of garments, mood boards, fabric swatches. At the bottom, in clean black type, was a single line. "Proposed collaborator, Claire Bennett." "Take a few days," he said. "Think. Talk to your people. If you say no, we will find another artist. It will be fine. But if you say yes, it will not be fine." His eyes glinted. "It will be terrifying, and I hope worth it." Outside, a horn blared on the street. Someone laughed in the hallway. A sewing machine whirred to life again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it for a moment, but curiosity won. She glanced at the screen. It was a text from Ryan. "Just got off a call with Vogue Italia. They want Emily for an editorial. Honestly, you should see how stunning she looks on camera. Proud of what I upgraded to." Her stomach lurched, and then, unexpectedly, settled, because here she was, being asked to shape how the world itself would look walking down a MoMA runway. "Okay," Claire said, feeling the word in her bones. "I want to say yes." Adrian's smile was small but genuine. "Good. Terrifying it is then." As she left Laurent Atelier that day, Claire didn't know the collection's first true test wouldn't be in front of fashion critics, but in front of the man who thought her value began and ended with how she looked next to him. The mistake began, like so many 21st century mistakes, with a scroll. 2 weeks into working with Laurent Atelier, Claire sat cross-legged on her mattress, laptop balanced on her thighs, the glow of the screen painting the small studio in cold light. The air smelled faintly of coffee and gesso. Outside, someone's music thumped through thin walls, a muffled bass line, insistent and slightly offbeat. She should have been sketching. Instead, she was on Instagram. Ryan's profile was a highlight reel of curated triumph. Rooftop cocktails, Hamptons weekends, behind-the-scenes boomerangs of Emily on set. The most recent post stopped her thumb. A professionally shot photo of Emily in an off-the-shoulder white dress, bouquet in hand, standing under a flower arch. The caption read, "She said, yes, couldn't imagine spending my life with anyone more beautiful inside and out, upgrade complete." Her heart kicked against her ribs. Comments scrolled underneath, a digital chorus. "Power couple. She's stunning, OMG. You guys look like a Calvin Klein ad, wow." Her own name was tagged once in a comment from an old college acquaintance. "Isn't this your ex, Claire?" Claire slammed the laptop shut, as if the machine had insulted her personally. The apartment plunged into relative darkness. Only the street lamp outside cast a pale rectangle across the floor, catching on the scattered pages of magnolia sketches. Her symbolic bloom multiplied and fragmented around the room. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Don't look at Insta. Just saw something infuriating." "Want me to come over with pizza and a bat?" Claire exhaled, tension softening at the edges. She replied, "Too late. Already looked." "Leave the bat. Bring the pizza." 3 dots blinked. "On my way. Also, check your email when you can. Olivia sent something insane." Claire hesitated, then reopened the laptop. She forced herself to click away from Ryan's page, fingers deliberately clumsy, and pulled up her inbox. The subject line from Olivia was all caps. MoMA confirmed. Gala date locked. The email below outlined the plan. Laurent Atelier would be closing the Museum of Modern Art for one evening in early October. The new collection, built around Claire's magnolia prints and a series of accompanying motifs, would premiere in a runway show through the sculpture garden and atrium. Guests, artists, actors, editors from Vogue, executives from LVMH and Kering, and a short list of strategic finance people. At the bottom was a note. Adrian would like you to open the show with him on stage. We'll talk details tomorrow. Claire leaned back, heart pounding for a different reason now. The kitchen faucet dripped in the background, a steady tick against metal. The radiators hissed. Somewhere above, a baby cried, then quieted. Her life, she realized, was splitting in two directions. One toward a fluorescent-lit conference room where Ryan bragged about his fiancée's bone structure, and another toward a stage where she'd stand under MoMA's vaulted ceilings as the world saw her magnolias come to life. So why did she still feel a sharp sting at that word, upgrade? The subtext was ugly and familiar. He replaced you with someone better. You were a draft. She's the final copy. Sarah burst in without knocking, balancing a pizza box and 2 cans of seltzer. I come bearing carbs and righteous rage, she announced. I'm working with a billionaire now, Claire said mildly. You can just say pizza and seltzer. Sarah set everything down, eyes scanning her friend's face. You saw it, she said. Yeah. He tagged you in the comments, Sarah added, tone simmering. Classic Ryan. It's fine, Claire said. People tag exes in their engagement posts all the time. Sarah stared. Do you hear yourself? Claire sagged onto the couch. Okay, no, it's not fine. It's weird and cruel and performative. And deliberate, Sarah said. He's trying to get a reaction out of you, to prove he still matters. He does still matter, Claire admitted, voice low. He matters enough that I'm sitting here doom-scrolling his life instead of working on the prints that are due in... She checked the clock. 9 hours. Sarah softened. Hey. She nudged the sketchbook with her toe. That thing on Insta, that's publicity. What you're doing is work. There's a difference. Claire swallowed. It's more than that. I keep imagining him at that gala. He's in finance. MoMA, LVMH, Adrian. It's his world too. What if he's there and sees me and thinks I followed him into his universe? Sarah's eyes flashed. First of all, you're not following him. You're leapfrogging him. Second, if he's there, good. Let him see what he threw away. An idea, reckless and sharp-edged, sparked in Claire's brain. What if I go to their engagement party? She asked. Sarah blinked. What? They're having one, Claire said. He mentioned it in a message a few weeks ago. Some rooftop in Tribeca. I deleted it, but I remember. Why would you willingly put yourself in a room full of people applauding your ex for upgrading from you? Sarah demanded. Closure, Claire tried. Proof that I'm over it? She shifted, restless. Or maybe just to see him look at me and realize I'm okay, that he didn't break me. The admission pulsed in the air. That was the truth under the rationalizations. She wanted his face to register regret. That's not closure, Sarah said gently. That's revenge with better lighting. Claire let the words sink in. The pizza smell, tomato, cheese, oregano, filled the room, comforting and grounding. I know, she said. It's stupid. It's human, Sarah corrected, but it's still a bad idea. Later, after Sarah left and the pizza congealed in the box, Claire sat alone at the table, pencil hovering over paper. She drew another magnolia. This time she stopped halfway. Instead of letting the petals curl into wilt, she stretched one outward, as if reaching, not for the sun, but for something beyond the frame. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Claire, it's Adrian. I hope I'm not disturbing you too late. Had an idea about the collection's title. Do you have a moment to talk? She stared at the screen. She could choose which call to answer now, the silent one from her past or the ringing one from her future. Her thumb hovered over Ryan's name in her contacts for a heartbeat. Then she scrolled up, tapped Adrian's message and hit call. She had no way of knowing that saying yes to that late-night brainstorm would lead not only to a collection's name, but to another kind of proposal entirely. The title came first, before the ring. They were in Adrian's office, high above Soho, windows framing a city that looked softer at night. The skyline glittered, a necklace of light draped across the dark. The room smelled faintly of coffee and paper, and something floral from the white lilies on the low table. Jazz played quietly from a hidden speaker, Coltrane, if Claire was guessing right. Fleur de rupture, Adrian said, rolling the French syllables easily. Flower of rupture. Too dramatic? A little, Claire admitted. Feels like a perfume commercial, he smiled. Brutal honesty. Good. What do you hear when you look at them? He nodded toward the wall, where enlarged prints of her magnolias in various stages of bloom and decay hung in a neat grid. I hear... She searched for words. Not rupture, not exactly. More like fractures that let light in. Her eyes drifted to a sketch of a blossom with a crack running through it. Golden thread embroidered along the fault line in one of the fabric tests. Like those Japanese kintsugi bowls. Adrian's eyes lit. Repair with gold. I like that. Kintsugi. He reached for a pad, scribbling. Kintsugi bloom? He tried. Too on the nose, she said, then winced. Sorry, you didn't ask for a critic. I did, he said. That is exactly what I asked for when I invited you here. He tapped the pad. We keep searching. They worked like that often now. Side by side at the long oak table, tossing words back and forth as easily as they swapped sketches. Collaboration had bled into something more fluid, an ease that made her forget sometimes that he was a billionaire, whose name appeared regularly in the New York Times business section. Tonight, he wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, collar open. A faint shadow of stubble darkened his jaw. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with weakness, more like he'd been thinking too hard and too long. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Why did you stay? His eyes were on the wall, but she knew he meant Ryan. In a marriage where your work was minimized, no? The question wasn't accusatory, it was curious, almost tender. She wrapped her hands around her mug, the ceramic warm. The mug was chipped at the rim, the crack sealed with a line of gold resin, a sample a ceramics friend had given her. Another kintsugi object. He wasn't always like that, she said. In college, he'd bring my sketchbooks to parties, show them around, tell people I was going to be the next Basquiat, which was ridiculous because I'm not a genius, and I also rarely paint people. She smiled faintly. But he believed in me. Or said he did. Then we moved to the city and his job became everything. I think he started resenting that my thing didn't have a ladder you could climb with clear promotions and bonuses. And you tried to make yourself smaller so he would feel bigger, Adrian said quietly. Yeah, she said. I told myself that's what love looked like. Compromise, sacrifice. She traced the chip on the mug. What I didn't realize was that there's a difference between sacrifice and erasure. Silence settled, but it was the comfortable kind, the pause in a conversation where both people are turning something over in their minds. Adrian leaned back, chair creaking softly. Do you ever regret leaving? He asked. She thought of Ryan's engagement post, of Emily's luminous smile, of the word upgrade. No, she said. I regret not leaving sooner. His shoulders dropped a fraction, as if something in her answer eased a tension he hadn't noticed he was carrying. What about you? She asked. Have you ever been married? Once she'd Googled him late at night, the blue glow of her screen the only light. The internet had offered rumors, an engagement broken off in Paris, a long-ago relationship with an actress who'd since moved to London. Nothing solid. He shook his head. No, came close. Twice. The first time she wanted my world, but not my work. The second my work, but not my world. He looked at her, eyes steady. I have been careful since. The subtext hung between them. Until now. The word they finally landed on for the collection was fracture and bloom. It came to Claire in the shower, water beating down on her shoulders. She'd scrambled out, dripping, to text Adrian. What about fracture and bloom, the idea that what breaks us is also what lets things grow? His reply came almost instantly. Yes, that is it. Perfect. Come see me tomorrow. We have to toast our title properly. She arrived at the studio the next afternoon to find his office different. The lilies were gone, replaced by a small vase holding a single magnolia bloom, creamy white and impossibly full. The scent was subtle but distinct, hitting that place in her chest where memory lived. On the table was a bottle of champagne and 2 flutes. "You bought a magnolia," she said. "I hunted a magnolia," he corrected. "Do you know how difficult it is to find one in New York in April that does not look like it has flown here in coach class? Olivia nearly murdered me." He popped the cork with easy practice, filling their glasses. Bubbles rose, catching light. "To fracture," he said. "And bloom," she finished, clinking. The champagne was dry and crisp, tiny explosions on her tongue. He watched her over the rim of his glass. "Claire," he said slowly, "these past months, you have changed this house. The way my team looks at patterns, the way I look at fabrics, even the way I look at the cracks in my own life. You have reminded me that broken can be beautiful." Her pulse fluttered. "You make it sound like I'm some kind of structural engineer for emotions." "In a way you are," he said. He set his glass down. "And it has made me less careful. In the best possible way." He reached into his pocket. For a heartbeat, she thought he was pulling out another business card, a note about production schedules, something practical. Instead, he placed a small dark blue box on the table. Her breath caught. "Adrian," she said, voice barely more than air. "There is a line to walk here," he said. "Power, gender, money, age. I have thought about all of it. I am your employer, your partner, your friend. I also—" He swallowed, and the vulnerability in that small gesture shattered something in her. "Love you, deeply, inconveniently, irreversibly." He opened the box. Inside was a ring unlike any she'd seen on Instagram. No halo of diamonds, no ostentatious center stone. Just a slim band of platinum, set with a single magnolia petal in mother of pearl, its edges caught in a filigree of gold, like kintsugi rendered wearable. "It is not traditional," he added, "but then neither are we." Tears blurred her vision. The room tilted, not with fear, but with the realization that this was what safety could look like. Not the absence of risk, but the presence of someone willing to face it with you. "Are you sure?" she asked, hand hovering over the box. "About everything?" "I am sure about you," he said simply. "The rest we will figure out." The subtext was clear. "You will not have to disappear for me to shine." "Yes," she whispered. "Of course, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. It was cool at first, then warmed quickly to her skin. The magnolia petal caught the light, a soft, steady gleam. Her phone vibrated on the table, ignored until the moment broke and she wiped her cheeks, laughing. "Sorry," she said, reaching for it. "I should put this on silent before it ruins any more perfect proposals." The preview text on the screen made her laugh die. It was from Ryan. "We set a date. Rooftop at the Tribeca Grand. Gonna be a photographer from Vanity Fair there. You should come, honestly. Would be good for you to see what real happiness looks like." Adrian saw her expression shift. "Bad news?" She looked at the ring, then back at the message. It was almost funny, the timing. Almost. "No," she said slowly, locking the screen. "Just a ghost from another life trying to prove he's alive." She met Adrian's gaze, clarity smoothing something inside her. "I was just asked to witness his version of happiness," she added. "But I think I prefer mine." By late summer, New York felt like it was humming at a slightly higher frequency. Heat shimmered off asphalt, distorting the air above cabs and food carts. The city smelled of hot garbage and street food and possibility. Flyers for outdoor concerts curled on lampposts, their corners peeling. Claire moved through it all with a strange double vision. On one layer, she was the same as everyone else. A woman on the subway, earbuds in, tote bag heavy with sketchbooks and produce from the Union Square Farmers Market. On another invisible layer, she was someone whose magnolias were being turned into silk in an Italian mill, whose name was printed, not large but legible, on internal Laurent Atelier documents, and whose ring finger held a secret. They'd decided together to keep the engagement private until the MoMA gala. Partly for practical reasons, contracts, image campaigns, delicate luxury world politics. Partly because there was something delicious about walking through the city with a secret only they shared. At the atelier, only Olivia and a few senior staff knew. There were whispers, of course. People noticed the way Adrian's gaze softened when Claire entered a room, the way he rested his hand lightly on the small of her back in crowded hallways. But the fashion world thrived on speculation. Without confirmation, the rumors remained just that. Outside that bubble, another kind of speculation was brewing. Ryan's engagement party, despite being nominally a private event, had its own hashtag. Sarah shoved her phone across the cafe table one afternoon, iced coffee sweating between them. "Look," she said, "Emily and Ryan say, yes, it's like watching a slow-motion car crash sponsored by GQ." Claire glanced at the photos, rooftop views, string lights, Emily's dress, a slinky, backless thing that looked sprayed on. Her hair twisted into effortless waves. Ryan in a slim-fit suit, grin wide. In one video he raised a glass. The sound was fuzzy, but his voice cut through. "To Emily," he said, "proof that sometimes the universe gives you a second chance to get it right." Sarah winced. "Wow, subtle dig at you, party of one." Claire's stomach turned, but the pain was muted, duller than it would have been months ago. "Do you ever wish he'd just disappear?" Sarah asked. "No," Claire said. "I wish he'd evolve, but that's not my job." She stirred her coffee, ice clinking against glass. The ring on her finger glinted, hidden beneath her fingers. They'd switched it to her right hand for now, a tiny act of camouflage. "Does Adrian know about him?" Sarah asked. "He knows I was married," Claire said. "He knows my ex worked in finance and didn't exactly support my art. He doesn't know about the engagement party hashtag or the upgrade comments." "How come?" Sarah asked. "You're not exactly the secrets type." "Because Adrian sees me as more than the worst thing that's happened to me," Claire said. "Sometimes I don't want to drag the ghost of Ryan into every room with me." The subtext: "I'm afraid that if I say Ryan's name too often, he'll start to matter again." Olivia slid into the cafe booth like a gust of espresso-scented wind. Sorry, fittings ran long. Claire, we need to talk seating chart." "Seating chart," Claire echoed. "For the gala," Olivia said. "MoMA is being temperamental about where we can put the runway in relation to the Calder Mobile. Also, Adrian's had some requests about who sits where." She pulled out a tablet, showing a digital map of MoMA's atrium. Names dotted the tables like a who's who of wealth and culture. Anna Wintour, Bernard Arnault, Rihanna, random acronyms that only meant something in the luxury world. Claire's eyes caught on a familiar logo next to a table number. Goldman Sachs. "Finance people?" she asked, throat tightening. "Obligatory," Olivia said, rolling her eyes. "Some of them are actually cool, some are just money in suits. Why?" "My ex works there," Claire said before she could stop herself. "Ryan Caldwell, VP in some division I never fully understood." Olivia's eyebrows rose. "Oof, want me to make sure he's not invited?" "You can do that?" Claire asked. "We can do almost anything," Olivia said. "Access is currency, honey." Claire pictured telling Adrian he should blacklist one specific man from a guest list of hundreds. It felt petty, small, like she'd be letting Ryan colonize yet another space in her head. "No," she said slowly. "If he's important enough to be there, he'll be there. I'll just wear something that makes him regret his life choices." Sarah snorted. "Babe, you could show up in sweatpants and he should regret his life choices." Back at the studio, the pace accelerated. Fabric samples arrived from Italy, their sheen and weight different on skin than on paper. Models came in for fittings, their bodies both instruments and canvases. Claire watched as her magnolias flowed over torsos and swayed around ankles, each movement turning her flat drawings into something alive. One afternoon, as she adjusted a belt on a gown, a column of midnight blue silk scattered with pale blossoms, Adrian came up behind her. "You're frowning," he said softly. "It's pulling weird at the hip," she replied, tugging gently. "It needs an extra dart." "That's not the only reason," he said. She stepped back, letting the seamstress kneel with pins. "I keep thinking about the night," she admitted. "MoMA, the cameras, the reporters. People will Google me. They'll find my divorce records, my underwhelming LinkedIn, my college Facebook photos with questionable bangs. They'll ask why you picked me." Adrian's gaze was steady. "And what will you say?" "That you lost a bet," she said, trying to make it a joke. He didn't smile. "I will say," he murmured, low enough that only she could hear, "that I chose the artist whose magnolia made me feel something in a world where feeling is often curated out of existence." The subtext was a balm. You are not a charity case. You are a catalyst. A week before the gala, Olivia burst into the studio, waving her phone. "We have a problem," she said. Claire's heart lurched. "What kind of problem?" "Goldman wants to add 2 more names to their table," Olivia said. "One of them is their new VP hotshot in some division. Apparently he helped structure a bond deal on one of the European expansions. They claim he's tight with LVMH." Claire's stomach dropped. She didn't need to hear the name. "Ryan Caldwell," Olivia read from her screen. "Ring a bell?" Claire's grip tightened on the edge of the table. There it was. Her mistake wasn't that she'd stayed silent about Ryan. It was that she hadn't prepared herself for the possibility that his world and hers would collide violently under MoMA's glass ceiling. "What do you want us to do?" Olivia asked. "We can push back. Say the table's full." Claire thought of him boasting about Emily's beauty in group chats, parading her around like a trophy. She thought of the word upgrade. "No," she said slowly. "Let him come." Olivia's eyebrows shot up. "You sure?" "If he's coming," Claire added, "I'd like to request one thing." "Name it." She looked at the floor plan, at the small X marking the stage. "Put him where he'll have the best view," she said. "If I'm going to spend years undoing the story he wrote about me, the least he can do is watch." The night of the MoMA Gala smelled like rain and money. A light drizzle slicked the sidewalks, turning the pavement into dark mirrors. Black sedans and SUVs pulled up in a slow procession, headlights cutting through the mist. Paparazzi clustered behind barriers, their cameras held aloft like weapons, flashbulbs puncturing the gloom. Claire stepped out of the car at a side entrance, her heels clicking on wet stone. The air was cool against the strip of bare skin at her back. The dress she wore was one of Adrian's early designs for her. Deep forest green, long-sleeved, high-necked, the fabric falling in a clean line to the floor. From the front, it was almost modest. From the back, it plunged low, a deliberate reveal of spine and shoulder blades. Her magnolia ring gleamed softly on her right hand. Adrian offered his arm. His tuxedo was simple and precise, bow tie sharp. He looked, she thought, like he belonged to every room he entered, and every room belonged to him, and yet he seemed anchored only by the way his hand settled on hers. "You're quiet," he said. "Just taking it in," she replied. Inside, the museum had been transformed. The atrium's white walls glowed under skillfully hidden lights. Branches of bare trees, spray-painted white, arched overhead, hung with glass orbs holding single magnolia blooms. The scent was faint but persistent, a ghost of spring in October. Waiters moved like choreography, trays of champagne gliding through the crowd. The murmur of hundreds of conversations blended into an elegant roar. Claire drew a breath. She could feel her heart in her throat. "Remember," Adrian murmured, leaning close. "They are here for the work first, the spectacle second. We have already done the hard part." "What's the hard part?" she asked. "Drawing honestly," he said. "The subtext. The rest is just noise." From the mezzanine, Claire could see the main doors where guests entered on the red carpet. The screens outside streamed into the lobby, celebrities, CEOs, editors posing before the step and repeat, names popping up in the Chiron: Zendaya, Anna Wintour, Bernard Arnault, and then Ryan Caldwell and Emily Hart. Claire exhaled slowly. Ryan looked almost exactly as he had on the day of the FaceTime call, clean-cut, expensively styled, confident. Emily wore a dress that could best be described as Instagram bait, metallic, form-fitting, slit high enough to make walking a calculated risk. Photographers shouted their names. Ryan smiled, arm around Emily's waist, angling them toward every lens. "Do you want to go somewhere else?" Adrian asked quietly. "No," Claire said. Her voice surprised her with how steady it sounded. "I want to work." The show began like a dream. They stood backstage as models lined up, each swathed in fracture and bloom. Under the bright runway lights, the magnolias shifted and shimmered. Gold thread fractures ran through dark silk like veins of ore through rock. Chiffon moved like breath. The music, a blend of strings and electronic percussion, rose, filling Claire's chest. Adrian squeezed her hand. "Ready?" She nodded. They walked out together. The noise of the crowd swelled, not a roar exactly, but a low, appreciative hum, punctuated by applause. On large screens flanking the runway, close-ups of the prince appeared, then faded into sketchbook pages. Her sketchbook pages, scanned and projected in meticulous detail. The magnolia, once confined to a coffee-stained notebook in a studio apartment, now spanned stories of wall. Adrien stepped up to the podium. "Bonsoir," he began, his voice carrying easily. "Thank you for joining us tonight as we celebrate not just fashion, but fracture. Not just beauty, but the cracks that let it in." He spoke briefly about the collection's inspiration, kintsugi, resilience, the ways we rebuild ourselves after we are broken. Then he paused. "This season," he said, "Laurent Atelier has done something new. We have built the entire textile story around one artist's hand, one point of view. Tonight, I would like you to meet her." He turned and held out his hand. Claire stepped forward. For a second, the light was blinding. She saw only vague outlines, tables, faces, cameras. Then her vision adjusted, and she saw details. The reflection of the magnolia on the polished floor, Anna Wintour's unmistakable bob, a cluster of young designers whispering into each other's ears. And at a table near the front, exactly where she'd asked, "Ryan." He froze. His mouth, which had been curved in easy conversation with the man next to him, slowly unhinged. Emily followed his gaze, eyes narrowing. On the screens, Claire's face appeared from a camera angle she hadn't known existed. Her features looked different than they did in bathroom mirrors, calmer somehow, more defined. "This is Claire Bennett," Adrian said, his voice warm. "She has taken her own fractures and turned them into something that can move across skin and space. From the moment I saw her magnolia, I knew we needed to build this world around it." He looked at her, and the affection in his eyes was not for show. "And," he added, his tone shifting, 3 months ago, in a moment of pure selfishness, I asked if she would consider building another world with me. A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Claire's heart thudded. I am happy to say, he continued, that she agreed. So please also allow me to introduce the woman who will soon be Madame Laurent. There was a beat of silence, then an eruption. Cameras flashed, people stood. Somewhere in the back, someone whistled. Claire's cheeks burned, but not with embarrassment. She felt, for the first time in a long time, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. At the Goldman table, Emily hissed something into Ryan's ear. His face had gone pale. The man beside him, a partner whose name Claire remembered vaguely from old holiday parties, looked between Ryan and the stage with dawning amusement. That's your ex, Claire could almost imagine him saying. The one you said didn't understand your world. Backstage afterward, the corridor smelled of hairspray and sweat and roses from floral arrangements. Models drifted around in silk robes, their makeup smudged, their laughter high and relieved. Claire leaned against a wall, letting it all wash over her. The adrenaline, the flashes, the congratulations. Olivia had hugged her so tightly she'd almost dropped her glass. Someone from Vogue had pressed a card into her hand. It felt like a movie montage she'd accidentally wandered into. Mrs. Almost Laurent, Sarah's voice sang from behind her. Claire spun. Sarah somehow had found a way in. Olivia must have pulled strings. She wore a thrift store dress and an expression of pure, unsophisticated joy. You did it, Sarah said, eyes shining. You really did it. Claire laughed, high and breathless. We did it, she corrected. You were there for every meltdown call. Sarah's gaze flicked to the side. By the way, your ghost is incoming. Claire followed her line of sight. Ryan stood at the end of the hall, Emily a step behind him. Up close, he looked almost the same as always, the expensive suit, the haircut. But something in his posture had changed. The easy swagger was gone, replaced by something tighter. His tie was slightly askew. Do you want me to run interference? Sarah asked. No, Claire said quietly. I can handle a conversation. Adrian appeared at her side as if summoned. Are you sure? He murmured. Yes, she said. I'm not alone anymore. The subtext lingered. Not alone in this hallway. Not alone in my life. Ryan approached, Emily's heels clicking behind him like punctuation. Claire, he said. His voice sounded wrong in this space, like someone playing a pop song in a cathedral. Wow, you look like myself, she offered. He blinked. Yeah, I guess. He looked at Adrien, then quickly away. So, Laurent, huh? Didn't see that coming. Most good things in my life lately have been things I didn't see coming, she said. His jaw worked. Up close, she saw the sheen of sweat at his hairline. We should talk, he said, privately. That won't be necessary, Adrien said, calm but firm. If you have something to say to my fiancée, you can say it in front of her partner. Ryan recoiled slightly at the word. Partner, he repeated. Wow, fast track, huh, Claire? You always did know how to adapt. Emily rolled her eyes. Oh my God, can you not? She muttered. Claire turned to her. Hi, Emily, she said, sincere. Congratulations on your engagement. Emily's mouth opened, closed. Thanks, she said, clearly thrown. You, too. Ryan shifted, restless. Look, I didn't know, he said, words tumbling. You never said anything. All this time I thought that I was stuck, she supplied. Still mourning you while you upgraded. His face flushed. That was a joke, he said. You know how I am. I do, she said. That's why we're not married anymore. She let the words sit. I should probably thank you, she added. If you hadn't made me feel so small, I might never have gotten desperate enough to remember how big art makes me feel. The subtext was sharp, but clean. You were the fracture. This is the bloom. Emily cleared her throat. You told me she didn't get what you do. she said to Ryan, that she was, what was it? Nice but basic, not built for our world. That seems wildly inaccurate. Ryan glanced at her, then back at Claire. I said things I shouldn't have, he mumbled. Adrian's eyes were cool. You reduced her to someone who made your coffee and your calendar, he said. You never looked up to see the work she was doing in the margins. His gaze sharpened. That is not a crime, but it is a waste. The corridor buzzed with distant applause as the last model stepped off the runway. A stagehand pushed a rolling rack past them, smelling of tool and steam. Ryan began, then stopped. Whatever he'd planned to say, apology, excuse, half-formed regret, crumbled under the weight of the scene around him. Claire in her gown, Adrian at her side, Sarah leaning against the wall like a witness, Emily watching with something like dawning self-respect. He looked suddenly small. I have to go, Emily said abruptly. I need to think. She turned, her metallic dress catching the light, and disappeared down the hall. Wait, Ryan started, but Claire put a hand up. Let her go, she said. She deserves someone who sees more than how she looks on his arm. He stared at her, breathing hard. I'm sorry, he blurted finally, for everything. Claire studied him. For a flicker of a second, she saw the boy he'd been at 19, nervous and cocky and charming in worn sneakers and a thrift store blazer. The boy who'd carried her canvas across campus in the rain. I hope, she said quietly, you learn to love something that doesn't show up in pictures. And that's where we'll leave Claire, on a quiet porch, coffee in hand, building a life that doesn't need anyone else's approval to be real. Her ex-husband's bragging, his obsession with upgrading, all faded into background noise the moment she chose to invest in her own worth. His fall wasn't magic karma. It was the natural consequence of a life built on surfaces. What about you? Did Ryan's journey feel like justice or just inevitability? Tell us in the comments. If Claire's story of fracture and bloom resonated with you, please like, share and subscribe for more powerful real-life dramas every week.